Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new Quality Playbook, Women Leading Change in Testing. We're just going to wait one more minute. We're ahead of a schedule, so we just want to wait one more minute to let more people join the webinar, and then we'll get started. A few more seconds, and then I think maybe we should just kick things off. I see on my watch that we should get started now. Great. So welcome, everyone. I'm Lucia Cavero Baptista, VP of Marketing at Ab Automation, and I'll be moderating today's session. So we're very excited to bring together leaders from the public sector, consulting, and product to explore how quality is evolving and what leadership looks like in today's modern testing. But before we dive in, let me quickly walk you through what to expect over the next 50 minutes or so. So today's session will be a live panel discussion followed by an audience Q&A. So this is meant to be conversational, dynamic, right? Not a presentation beyond the couple of slides that you are now going to see from my end. But once we're done with the introductions, we'll jump right straight into the panel discussion. But throughout the session, you will also see a few live polls pop up. So we would love your participation. It really helps make the conversation more interactive and reflective of what's happening in your organizations. And on the bottom right, you will find both a chat and a questions tab. So feel free to use the chat at any time, but for questions specifically to our panelists, please use the questions tab. And at the very end of the discussion, we will have the Q&A, and we will be choosing those questions from the questions tab. So please do that at any time, right? And we will take the questions at the end of the session. And just a quick note, the webinar is being recorded, right? So you will receive the replay via email after the session. All right, so now that we're all set, let's meet the incredible panelists joining me today. Why don't we start with you, Renee? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Certainly. Greetings. Hello, my name is Renee Taylor, and I am the Quality Control Testing Director for the State of Vermont's Department of Vermont Health Access. This is the department that manages the state of Vermont's Medicaid benefits and the associated services that we support for state of Vermont beneficiaries. I have been working in QA and with the state for about 11 years. I currently manage a team of 12 software testers from various backgrounds, those that come from tech backgrounds, as well as those that come from healthcare and non-healthcare backgrounds. And we have worked on over 35 implementations over the course of my time with the state, most of which have to do with modernization of our legacy systems, which are between 30 and 50 years old.
Quite impressive. Thanks, Renee. Tuba, up to you.
Yeah, hello also from my side. My name is Tuba, and I have been working in the IT since 2016 in various different industries like financial and public health sectors mainly. And I have a technical background, so I started as a developer and then moved to the testing domain. And since then, I have been specialized in test automation, and currently I'm a test coordinator for a service layer in the banking, which many consumers are using this service layer. And besides that, I'm co-leading the test automation in that same project, and happy to be here.
Thank you, Tua. We're very excited to have you join us today as well. Sai.
Hi, I'm Sai. I'm terrible at introducing myself, but also I've been in the testing and test automation, but also a little bit of security testing space since 2006. I know that gives away a lot. I started out in consulting, so I've done a couple of different things. I've been an end user. I've been building products and things, but I decided my heart lies in building products that help QA professionals in the space. So now I'm working at bringing a good layer of AI into products at Avo, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you, Sai. Thank you very much. Well, very excited to start the discussion. Before we dive right in, very quickly, just to get an overview of the topics we're going to talk about today. First, we're going to start with the new playbook, right? What's changing in modern testing? I think this is going to be a very, very interesting topic to discuss today. Then we're going to move on to scaling quality across complex environments. And finally, about women leading change in modern testing, right? Ultimately, we're celebrating Women's Week this week. So we'll be finishing off with some practical tips for any women entering the tech industry. Lovely. So I'm just going to get rid of this. And I hope you can now see the lovely faces of our panelists on your screen. Great. So let's start with the quality playbook, or the new quality playbook, right? Quality assurance is no longer just about defect detection, right? It's about becoming strategic, cross-functional, and business critical. So the first question that I would like to ask the panelists is, what does the new quality playbook mean to you in your organization? Tuba, let's begin with you.
Yeah, so to answer your question directly, to me, the new quality playbook fundamentally means change, because for years, many organizations viewed quality assurance as a box to check or a search for bugs at the very end of the product cycle. But today we have changed our mission, I would say, because we are no longer just finding defects, but we became a strategic partners of our businesses. And our goal is not only to report what has passed or failed, but also provide knowledge and investigate in the product so that the risks can be addressed and also critical decisions can be made. So I see mainly three changes, like we shift left, so we start testing early. And second, the learning organization, so the teams and the individuals are learning and adapting with the technology. And the third one, I would say, it's connected to the learning that throughout the years, changing of the technology and also with the AI, the skill sets has changed completely. So these are the three main changes I would see in that area.
I completely agree with that. And I think that we're seeing this shift right from execution to a strategy. And I don't know about you, Renee, but how do you feel also that the role of QA has evolved in these past 3 to 5 years? Do you see that shift from execution to strategy?
Absolutely. We've had to basically bridge the gaps. We've been siloed quite often in the past when most of our projects were waterfall. We've shifted away from waterfall into not just agile or some hybrid, but we've got a lot of rapid development that happens. And so, we find ourselves on like the very edge of technology, whether it's, we've got AI incorporating into all of these different systems and applications and tools. In healthcare, there's been a lot of changes that have been happening and coming down the line. And so our strategies have had to evolve alongside that. So we have to definitely be more nimble, but we also have to plan for the work ahead of us, not just tackle, what is directly in front of us, but plan about what's coming next. So we have to see what's on the horizon, prepare for that. And we also need to prepare our teams, and not just our testing teams, but the project teams as well, to communicate, to work with end users, and how to work with them throughout the entire implementation, because it's no longer about, that test at the end. We have to be incorporated early on, and we have to do a fair amount of education at the same time.
It's almost like you need to become these cross-functional influencers, right? And
exactly.
Really kind of like quality is becoming a lever, let's say, for efficiency, but not just that safety net. What do you guys think? Is this also resonating with what you see? Sai or Tuba?
Yes. We have to become we have to be involved in every part of the journey. And I think it's also a lot of education, because a lot of people aren't used to testers being involved that early in the life cycle. So we need to start educating them on why we need to be involved that early on and what sort of value we add towards the end.
Definitely. Would you say also that, is we're much more closer to the business, right? Or at least that is the shift that we're seeing. To also touch on this, right? But like we truly need to validate business outcomes, and these quality conversations are moving into the executive discussions, right? So it's less about the cases, like Tuba was saying, more about risk, resilience, and velocity. But Sai, would you say, or what is that one outdated practice in testing that organizations need to move away from?
Look, I think Tuba and Renee made very interesting points. Well, yes, there is a shift in how people are thinking about testing and what testers actually bring to the table. It is getting more strategic. But one of the things that I still notice, and this was as recent as a couple of months ago in another project I was working on, yes, people are agile, people are building software rapidly, but there's still that mindset of, hey, somebody writes the requirements, and until the requirements are final, it never goes to the testers. And then the testers still go into writing their test cases and then waiting for the build to be delivered before they can start actually testing. But testing actually should be involved in, are you even writing the requirements correctly? Are there any gaps over there? And it could go way back as well, but I'm just going to stick to requirements. So what we've essentially got now is still a very waterfall with an agile approach. We're not testing in tandem. Shift left typically happens, and it's been implemented well in areas like security testing, because when you look at static code analysis and catching vulnerabilities early on, that is still happening. But somehow this umbrella to tie the different types of testing, security testing, functional testing, performance testing, user acceptance testing, they all still address risk, but they address it in a different way. But most organizations haven't brought these things together under one umbrella. They're still looking at this as separate phases of a software delivery lifecycle.
Yeah, very, very much siloed.
Yep.
We need to bring back that element of like one team, right? One team working together is really going to move things forward. The more siloed we stay, not only the longer it will take, but exactly that, like there's going to be a lot of rework because you just keep going back and forth if there's not really truly that communication.
I think quality is about cohesion. And
Yes.
that cohesion is missing in the space today.
Yep. Years back, just a quick anecdote. Years back, I went to a testing conference, and one of the discussions that were had were the three amigos. It was a discussion around the DevOps culture, and the three amigos of development, the business, and QA, and how we all work together as partners. And I would like to see that evolve even more, and kind of embrace that cohesion.
Yeah.
What do you think could be done to accelerate that process, right? Of that concept of three amigos. What do you think is that one thing that if we were to change, we would get there a little bit faster?
Education, communication and education up and out to leadership, to project managers, to our vendor partners that we work with, and in getting that out as early as possible and kind of communicating our role, and the shared role really of quality management as a whole.
I agree. I think that it's very important for a QA leader to be able to communicate the business value of QA so that it doesn't become the afterthought. It's really embedded into the whole process. And it's easier said than done, but I think that with the right frameworks and with the right person leading QA, those connections can be done way faster, for sure.
And one thing I also would like to add is that quality is everyone's responsibility, so we should have that in mind, and this is always forgotten.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's also, it might be because, yes, education is important to let everyone know what everyone's role is within a project, if you will, but also if you really think about it, it's also reframing what everyone's role is within, because who's penalized if the product's quality is not great on go live? Who's pointing the finger at whom at which point? And when that becomes a shared KPI that everybody has to adhere to, suddenly you start seeing shifts in mindset.
Yes.
That's a very good point. I like that. Shared accountability. Ultimately, there's also like many ways in which companies track progress and objectives, right? But I think having that embedded into whatever it may be, either the department's objectives, company objectives, whatever it may be, depending on obviously which company you work for, can really create that shared accountability. I agree. Awesome. Before we move on to the next theme, I would like to just publish a small poll for all of you, and that is, how would you describe QA's role in your organization today? Is it primarily execution focused, right? So just do as you're told, let's say, for lack of a better term, automation driven but siloed, integrated with engineering, right? Or like that very good communication and really working cohesively together, or strategic and business aligned. So one level above, right? Like what we were talking about, like really becoming top and center of the discussion.
I'm looking forward to seeing the results of this.
Well, so far we see that most people believe that it is integrated with engineering, and they're changing slightly. I'm glad to know or to see that the least chosen one is primarily execution focused. So we're seeing progress in QA. That is really good. That is really good. Yes, continue. So okay, people see. It looks like people are very much like let's say mature in that journey. So it is a bit of on equal terms, integrated with engineering and strategic and business aligned. Thank you everyone for submitting your votes. Great. Let's move on to the second topic of discussion for today, scaling quality across complex environments. So, whether public sector systems or enterprise consulting engagements or, product innovation, scaling quality is hard, right? So what are the biggest challenges organizations face when trying to scale testing? And Tuba, I know you have a lot of consulting experience, so I'm sure you have. What patterns do you see? Let's see.
Yeah, so in my experience working in banks and insurance, as I mentioned earlier, scaling is I would call it hardest thing to apply to do. So it's not about that we do more work, but it's about keeping the quality of our thinking high as it grows. So to me, there are two main challenges. The one is that many organizations think that scaling means that we write more scripts. But as I always say, automation is our safety net. So we catch with automation the known risks. So the challenge is that when we scale, we also did not end up with thousands of automated checks. And because with that, we still don't know what we cannot understand the new risks. We just can find the known risks, and therefore for us it's also not easy to say if we are ready for a go live for a release. So in order to scale, we also, as I mentioned earlier, that we need to investigate as well. So that we can do with manual testing, with exploratory testing, to catch the things that we don't know. So like edge cases and so on. This is one of the challenges. And the second one, in the finance sector, we have also a lot of legacy and challenges and regulatory pressure because when scaling them, the systems get also complex. For example, now like DORA, digital Operational Resilience Act, for example. It started in 2025, and now all in the sectors are started to implement it. So we have the regulatories, but they are not well described in detail. So everyone needs to understand how I'm going to apply this in our processes and how can I apply it into my testing. And I need to do it quickly because if there is an audit, I need to ensure that the compliance testing pass also here. So yeah, these are the main challenges basically I see.
I really agree with that. I think that legacy systems can really prove challenging. Obviously, on top of that, if you have regulatory constraints, it's just all of it adding together. Also, one thing that I often see is that some people say that tooling sometimes can be the one thing stopping scalability. Or the restrictions within that tool. But something that a lot of people don't talk about also is that about culture and ownership, right? I think that scaling quality is as much about those two things as it is about automation frameworks, just to bring another perspective to that. Sai, Rene, do you have anything to add to what Tuva just said?
Always,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I'll let Renee go first. Renee, go first.
Yeah, so it's definitely, as we continue to move forward, and as especially in regulated industries, healthcare, banking, finance, things like that, there are things that come down the line that are handed to us that we just have to meet. We have to hit compliance and certifications, and being able to incorporate our strategies and the quality components around that early is something that really kind of, again, speaks to that education, to that culture of making sure that what we do is known and that we have a voice at the table when it comes to some of the requirements or some of the challenges or some of the obstacles that are going to be in our way, that we voice those early on so that we can they don't they don't just kind of sit there and fester until someone finally decides that, oh hey, yeah, this is going to be a problem. It's like we can communicate it, we see it early enough, we know it's going to happen, so we can prepare for it.
I think it's perfect now that you're talking about this, because the next question was about how do we ensure quality is embedded early and not treated as the final checkpoint. So what approach, how do you approach this in what I believe is very complex, like public sector environment?
Yeah, so I insist on being included at the RFP, request for proposal level, at the user story requirement design, at the contracting level, making sure that there are requirements in place at the contract level for quality, whether that is quality management as a whole or testing specific. What we expect our partners to be doing when it comes to testing, as well as understanding what our role is going to be when it comes to testing. Mm-hmm. And then again, working with end users and educating and training around what it means to test and everything that leads up to it. Again, sometimes a visual component, like we've got the visual component of when everything is stacked. Okay, everything is pushed to the end. So we have all of these tasks and activities that have to go in with test management, test planning. If everything is pushed to the end, we have all of this work to do at the very end, and we don't have the time to actually have really the depth and breadth of testing that we would like to incorporate. Versus if we have all of this time, that's the shift left. Look at all the things that we can accomplish if we do that. So communication, education, training, and then getting at the table, having our place at the table and acknowledging where there's gaps.
I love this mindset that you have, and I think it also goes back also to that shared accountability that we spoke about earlier. What do the rest of you think?
A great example comes in my mind as well, because if we don't address these risks earlier, then it's called testing is a bottleneck. I heard this a lot of time, and this is crazy. Just that it fits really good to what you have said. So yeah, just wanted to mention it.
No, I mean, look, testing is a bottleneck is such a thing, but it's also when do testers realistically get enough information to know that they're testing the right things before we push something out to prod. Like,
Exactly.
if we get that information too late in the life cycle, we're still not able to achieve what we would like to realistically as testers.
That is such a great point, because we hear that so much, right? At Abo, we have countless of people coming to us saying, testing is a bottleneck. We need automation. We need that help. And obviously, automation can help with that to an extent, relieving that time in test creation and test execution. But I love that there is more to that. That is not just about the actual execution of the test and the creation of the test, but everything else that comes before. And if we're not all working together, everyone else is also contributing to that bottleneck.
Exactly.
And now that I'm talking about automation, where do automation and tooling help most? And where is human judgment still critical? So obviously you have that product perspective, right? So how do you balance automation with that human insight?
Look, I've been in automation long enough, and it may seem a little bit biased because I do build automation products now. But realistically, if you think about automation, what it does is what you tell it to do. Okay, like we just need to separate that. And what you can tell it to do is what you know about the system. For example, you would know that if I click on this and enter this and click on something else, I expect to see this. Automation is great at validating whether that sequence of events leads to that specific outcome or not. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a ton of these things embedded into legacy systems, into modern systems that are building. There's always a predictable aspect of it. And with the advent of AI, there's a couple of things that you might be able to deviate from. It might be able to go through a couple of paths that you didn't think about. But we need to be mindful of the fact that we are building systems for people. We're not building systems for AI. We're not building systems for other systems. I mean, we sometimes are, but but when we're doing that, human judgment plays such an important role, leading back to what Tuba and Renee were talking about earlier, and you as well, Lithia. It's mostly a matter of how do the end users use my system? What is the experience they have when they use my system? Okay, and I'm not just talking about what we're doing as testers, does this work as it should? But when you start going into, we are going to launch this to people. People have emotions. People get frustrated. Systems aren't going to get frustrated. They just do as they're told. People aren't like that. So there is a lot of human judgment and the human emotion that we need to start bringing into testing to look at it beyond, this is just a system that does what we intend for it to do. People are creative. Testers need to get creative along and need to have the time to be creative. So that's where automation, get the mundane out of the way, get the things that are predictable out of the way, and you focus on bringing your creativity to the table.
I 100% agree with that. We see it a lot, where ultimately, we're not robots, and we're not meant to be robots, and that's why removing that repetitive work that can, what can be automated should be automated, what cannot be automated should not be automated, and then you can use that time in value creation tasks, things that are actually going to bring value to the business. And of course, not to say that the automation is not bringing value to the business, it is, but you as an individual as well, what can you do with that time that you've gained now once you have automated certain things, in your day-to-day? What do you see, Renee, Tuba?
Absolutely the same thing. Automate the small stuff was the mantra back in the day, right? That was what got you into it. Those those repeatable processes, the mundane, the boring, that all that can be automated and pulled away so you can focus on that that creativity, which I think is incredibly important, because when we just kind of stick to the technical, right? And I think we fall into that trap a lot. We focus on the requirements and we focus on the functionality, and we kind of we end up with blinders on, and we forget about the end user, and we forget about their journeys and their experiences. And so being able to step away from that mechanical and put ourselves more in the shoes of the end users and proxy for them and advocate for them and their experience, we can really do a lot more. We can do, I was gonna say, well, more good. We can do more good.
Oh, yes.
And so I think that it opens up that opportunity, and I think that is a great place where automation of, whether it's a business process automation, robotic processing, automation for testing, like there's a lot of places where automation and AI can be a great tool for that. And it's just a matter of identifying that so that you can step away. That's still its own work, and it's not easy, but it's definitely something that has come a long way, and it allows us to expand our focus and provide more for ultimately the end user.
Yeah, maybe I can also add some word sense to it. So when before starting automating, I think Sai and Rene also covered that a little bit, but what I wanted to add here is understanding requirements and prioritizing what to automate, which it should be like value testing. So you can go and check the risks areas and identify them and automate only those parts, and not just go through all the requirements and automate everything. And to the other topic, there is a great quote from our CEO, Julia Sweet. Do not be the human in the loop, but be the human in the lead in terms of AI. So don't just watch what it's going to be automated, but also check afterwards, investigate, think critically. So I thought that fits good to the discussion.
Yes, definitely. Very, very interesting quote, I must say. I like what you said about choosing carefully what you want to automate. And I love, many people, when people talk about test coverage, to an extent, many people think of like, how many out of 100 test cases, how many can I automate? And then they think that's the coverage. When I talk about test coverage, I think about risk coverage. And I love to use the 20-80 rule, right? Because most of the times, maybe out of 100, 20 of those test cases are the truly critical ones that are going to cover 80% of the risk that you're looking to cover, right? So it's about being strategic and really thinking which are the test cases that we think we should prioritize in that automation effort. Not to say that you cannot automate most of it, of course you can, but which ones are you going to automate first? Because ultimately there's a million things you can test, but you have to think critically about which tests are really going to have the biggest impact on your QA efforts.
I mean, it's not that easy, of course. In that space, we are developing our products like within 2 weeks, but before starting with it, when you create in your backlog, you can just go and check about the risk areas. So just investigate time and But I know it's sometimes not quite easy to apply, even though I'm for it.
Yeah, no, but Tuba, if you really think about it, if you think about all the things in AI, there's unfortunately not a very smart quote I can think of right now, but I can think of a meme, right? Look, and also maybe it's a smart quote that somebody made that I can't remember, but there was a post floating around at one point that said, look, I need AI to be able to do my laundry and cook for me and things like that, so I have the time to focus on travel, on reading, on music, on poetry. But if you apply that to the testing world, just clicking through a bunch of pages to be like, oh yeah, I can create this account or I can create this opportunity, is the least interesting aspect of testing. Like that is the laundry that AI needs to be taken care of. And when you look at how people approach automation, they look at the numbers of tests automated. Nothing in there specifies the percentage of risk, like you were saying earlier, right? It doesn't specify that. People claim victory in numbers, but we need to start shifting what those numbers mean as well.
I love that.
Exactly.
I totally agree. So let's ask the audience once more before we jump onto the next topic. But what is the biggest barrier to scaling quality in your organization? Is it legacy systems, lack of automation, organizational silos, or limited resources or skills? So let's see what people say.
I have a thought on what I think it will be, but I'd be happy to be proven wrong.
Okay, your guesses. I would love to see because I can see the results already.
I don't want to bias anybody, so I'm not going to say it out loud.
Well, I can tell you already now that it is legacy systems.
Oh.
So most of people have said it's legacy systems followed by organizational silos and limited resources or skills. It seems that most people are automating nowadays, so that no one chose that one. That is good. I'm happy to hear about that. Great. So last topic of the day, Women's Week, of course. So we need to talk about women leading change in modern testing, right? Leadership in QA is evolving, and visibility, mentorship, and representation matter, right? You cannot be what you cannot see. So what leadership qualities are most important for modern QA leaders? Renee, let's begin with you.
I think that being willing to take opportunities as they come. I think a lot of times women don't always step forward. They don't come to the table. They don't take up the space. They don't put themselves forward, whether by just nature or the actual opportunities that present themselves. For myself, I find that being able to provide a culture for my team that allows for education, that allows for them to attend conferences, grow their networks, establish a peer network, even in the team, other teams that we connect with contracted vendors, with through webinars and experiences like this. I had to self-educate pretty quickly. I didn't come from I've always been a little tech savvy and everything like that, but I didn't come from a testing background. I didn't earn my computer science degree until 3 years ago. So everything I learned from networks, conferences, mentors like Dorothy Graham and Angie Jones, Lisa, like all of these women leaders in testing, following their example, following their lead. A peer colleague told me once to take up the space. We're at a conference and here I am, like kind of on the edge of this group of people talking, and she just like made space for me to participate. So being that advocate for others to come up in the same way, removing the barriers as much as possible, paving that way. I created my own path with the state of Vermont just out of necessity because this position didn't exist, right? So I had to make it. And so for myself as a leader, I have to make that path accessible for others to come up behind me and to mentor them and provide them the opportunities that are out there. Make sure that they are aware of them and help them achieve the way, their best self, kind of in that coaching, mentorship kind of capacity.
I love that. I think that one rule can be applied to any business or any department, right? That mentorship and people opening doors for you is very, very impactful. Another thing that I have observed from my time working in QA is that, just like you mentioned, that you didn't really, to begin with, had that technical depth, but is influence and communication. What I see is that those two are skills are becoming just as important as technical depth, and the ability to translate technical risks or technical jargon into business language is something that really puts people at the forefront or at the top as a leader. What do you see, Sai or Tuba?
Well, I'm very anti-jargon as much as I can be. So look, yes, most people expect that from you, but if it doesn't feel natural, I don't do it. You know what I mean? But I've still managed to have a good set of people around me. Like as Renee was saying, you need that mentor, you need a network, you need so many things. But it's also important to note that the people around you also have the capability to notice that skill that you don't notice for yourself. And when you're surrounded by people like that, when people can point out your strengths that you don't see for yourself, growth comes automatically.
I love that. And what has helped you specifically, Sai? What has helped you grow your career, and what barriers do you have to navigate?
Look, I'd say 20 years ago, if you'd asked me what I'd be doing now, I wouldn't have been able to tell you anything. And even now, I wouldn't be able to tell you what I'd be doing specifically in 5 years. I know I'd be doing something. And it's always been a goal of mine to say, I'm going to be doing something big, that the world doesn't expect. I always had these lofty ambitions, even growing up. But somehow I stumbled into the testing world. I was actually a tech major, but not software. But I stumbled into the testing world, and a couple of years later, I was like, this isn't for me. I'm going to try and study engineering management. I'm going to study product management. I'm going to study project management. So I started going wide in terms of the topics that I started reading about. Maybe the first 5 articles, maybe the first 10 articles, even 100. None of it would make sense. But suddenly the 101st article that you see, or maybe it's a tiny snippet, a meme, suddenly everything clicks. And then you start being able to apply it to your daily life. So one of the things that I would recommend to everybody is don't just stick to what you're doing today. Look at other areas. Maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't. But when it does help and it does click, growth comes automatically. But also, to extend what Renee was saying, another thing that I didn't realize I was doing that someone pointed out to me was actually networking. It wasn't so much about, hey, what value can you bring to me? It wasn't so much what value can I bring to you, but it was a simple comment, a simple post, a simple appreciation of something somebody wrote about, a struggle that they went through, a learning that they did. But through that, you start building connection with somebody. It is still about the human connection. But once you build that connection, there are doors that open for you that you never expected. And every time I find that when I look back at my career, I have no idea how I got to where I got to in this company or in this role, or how am I doing what I'm doing right now. But it's a series of things that add to it. It never feels like you're getting to where you need to at that time. But when you look back, you suddenly realize, oh, that was that one decision that I made to read something that I thought was immaterial that got me here. So get rid of that fear. The barrier was honestly something internally. It was just me. I was the barrier. I don't know how else to explain it.
But I love that. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Renee. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, I think that's very common for women.
Yep.
We are our own worst critics. And we have a lot of fear around our own knowledge and inherently what we know, that we don't realize, oh, I know this.
Yep.
Until we start talking about it, and it's like, oh, I have all of this knowledge that I'm sharing that I didn't realize I knew, but I knew, but I didn't know that I knew.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think it goes back to, you just said, Sai, that sometimes you feel like, how did I even end up in this role, right? And even when you look at the data, women are less likely to apply to certain jobs as men, because women will see if they meet all of the requirements, and only if they meet all of the requirements they will apply. Whereas a man will see, one requirement, I'll apply nonetheless, right?
Yeah.
And many times you don't need all of the requirements. Many times if you have the right profile, the right mindset, you will be perfect for the role. And I am sure that maybe in some instances where you feel like maybe I don't meet all of the requirements, but the person hiring you obviously thought that you would. If not now, maybe eventually. So I will always say this to other women. I encourage them to apply for jobs, even if they do not meet all of the requirements. If they truly think that they can, bring something to the table, just go ahead. And what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
That they say no.
Their loss,
That is so true. That is so
Exactly.
true. And how can organizations create environments where more women thrive in tech? Tuba, what practical steps should organizations take, do you think?
Yeah. So Renee touched on it a little bit about mentoring.
Mm,
And yes, I agree with that. We should start with mentoring and coaching. But what I see in the tech companies, also from my experiences, is that coaching is not always enough, because sometimes we get overcoached, over mentored, but we don't have the sponsorship. So one leader that can open us really the doors. And then eventually we will also lose our own thinking. We do what
mm,
we've been told to do, and we lost our individuality and uniquenesses. So we need to find a balance on that. But yeah, when a leader can give you this opportunity to let you try, to open the doors, to give you the visibility, then I think at least as a woman, or from my point of view, you can give it a try and you see how you feel in that area. I can give an example of that. For example, I'm a LinkedIn Spock for our community, for our QS community engineering services. And back then, it was 3-4 years ago, my people lead asked me to take over this role from another lady. And I was, can I do it? I'm not sure. I don't think I can do that. But he told me, give it a try. You will see if you can do. If not, we'll find another person. But I tried it and saw that I can do it. So he trusted me and also gave me this opportunity to do this. And that opened me basically the doors. So this is really a great example, I would say.
I love that, because I always say more women need to start supporting other women, right? That step number one.
Yeah.
But at the same time, do not always rely on other women to be your sponsor, because in my case, and unfortunately also due to the fact that there are more men in leadership positions in IT than there are women. So by statistics, by percentage, let's say, you would probably be more likely to be sponsored by a male than a female. So look for those, right? Both, doesn't matter if it is a man or a woman, but look for those sponsors that can talk about you and advocate for you in every single room that they are. Because the more that your name pops up, the more that the more visible you will become in those levels.
Yeah. And maybe one thing to add, that also the culture of acceptance is very important. So giving the females this kind of psychological safety in the company. So like, can I say what I think? Am I allowed to do mistakes? Am I okay with how I'm reacting? So this is also, yeah, an important thing what we can apply in the organizations. And also maybe build some kind of safe place, like community for empowering woman to woman or men to woman. Yeah.
Mhm.
I agree. We're running a bit low on time now. So I'm going to just publish the last poll of this session, which is what would most help women advance in tech organizations? Structured mentorship programs, clear leadership pathways, strong sponsorship and advocacy, or cultural and policy changes?
Quick question. Can I pick more than one?
Yeah.
Is that allowed?
Yes, you can.
Great.
You're able to. Sorry if I didn't specify that earlier on.
You know,
I just tried.
I didn't even test it. I was just like, I should just ask because we're right here.
Well, so far, I mean, I see a lot of answers coming in, and it's changing. It keeps changing. It's very tight. So right now, it seems that most of it is around, for now, strong sponsorship and advocacy is leading the way right now. I also believe that that's true. I mean, all of them should be happening, right? But of course, you can choose one. Cultural and policy changes is also up in the top. Great. Well, I want to make sure that we leave some time to ask questions to our panelists. So first of all, thank you so much for contributing to the discussion. I see that we already have some questions, so I'm going to, how can why is this not working? Give me 1 second. So the question should pop up on the on the main screen, but I'm having some issues doing that. So I'm just going to read the question out loud. Hope that is okay. But first question is, when you come across an organization, what are the first signs that tell you their approach to quality is mature or not? I love that question. So what are those first signs? What would you look for? Let's say tomorrow you get interviewed by a company. What would be the signs that you will see that indicate is mature or not? Who would like to start?
Can I nominate someone? I mean, I don't want to.
Like, bring it on, bring it on.
Look, that is a true sign of quality, okay? That's all I would say, because it's like you're involving everybody in the conversation and not just making it your own thing. So am I allowed to nominate somebody? As long as I don't put Tuba and Renee on the spot.
I think now you've put your own self on the spot, so I think you're going to have.
I see. This is my biggest weakness. Look, the first signs that tell me whether an organization is quality mature or not. I've worked in a lot of companies. I will not be shy to admit it. But one of the things I've started asking is, what are the typical things your end users say about your product? So I would do that analysis before I go in to meet with a company. You know, what's the general community saying about it? Are there reviews? Are they fake reviews? I'd find out about that. And when I go in to actually speak to a SPOC from the company, I would ask them what their thoughts are, what they're trying to change, what they think the biggest challenges are. If they are completely misaligned with what's out there and the experience users have, that automatically tells me that they are not open to feedback. And if you're not open to feedback, you're automatically not moving in the right direction to quality, and that maturity is not going to come. So that's the biggest thing I can think of.
I like that.
What can I add maybe here is also the communication within the teams. It's very important, because if you see there is no good communication within the team, you see the split, and if they are not communicating very well in the teams, they can also not build this good product in the end. I mean, this is what I have observed after doing some test assessments. Yeah, and documentation is very important. Of course, only when you always adjust the documentation, just not like document and leave. Yeah.
Ticking the box.
Yes. I was going to say their approach to growth, right? So continuous improvement. I know it's one of those buzzwords, that companies like to throw out there. Well, we're striving for continuous improvement and quality improvement, but I think if they actually practice what they preach, right? So the actual steps that they've taken to grow, they may not be fully mature yet in their quality practices, but they have a roadmap, they have a plan, they want to get there, and they're trying to get there. So it's that growth mindset of how can we get to this end goal and how can we do it effectively. If that is their approach versus this is the way we've always done it and this is what we're going to continue to do because this is what's worked in the past. That doesn't, I mean, that has its place, but we also need to evolve. And where does that, how do they approach that? What works versus what we need to adopt and what we need to change. Like, how do they approach that? That's where, if someone is more on the mature end, or approaching that, that's in place. Like that mindset and culture is there.
It's not a question, but someone dropped a very good comment on the chat. They say getting lost in translation makes it difficult for product and dev to communicate. So how do we ensure that we're all speaking the same language?
You want to hear like a politically may not be accepted take on this? Ditch the jargon.
Yeah, but you
Start
said it earlier.
Plain language.
Create
Plain language.
create a common language within your team. Make
Yeah,
some workshops.
Yeah, but Tuba also, like, look, we're talking about creating a common language. Creating a common language basically means you have a jargon that everybody understands the same way. But guess what? We're all speaking just plain English here. We're not throwing terminology. We're not throwing something to, feel cliquish. Remove that. Remove the mystique around the space. Right? You don't need to talk about, a 7-tier architecture and blah, 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 blah. You could just say, well, I have a UI. You know what I mean? I have a UI and I have the data that's entered there that goes somewhere in the back end. Maybe that's what's needed to start until everybody can start adapting to the jargon. I mean, I don't know. It's just like it could be like polarizing.
No, that's actually like real world happening to me now, right? On a project that I'm in, right? So on a project, we have data elements, tokens. We have tokens, we have blurbs, and these blurbs have 7 tokens that go in. So it's going to go into, what's going to be the output. And the end users, they don't know what that means. Right. And the blurbs are in HTML and so we have to parse them for them. And so one of the things that, we also run up against the phrase test case or test plan. What does that mean? Test case could be a member case. It could be the steps. It could be the conditions. It could be any one of these things. So level setting and getting that domain knowledge, speaking the language of the people that you are going to be working with and adapting, making that translation on their behalf kind of thing, just kind of coming down from that technical and speaking to them, not at them.
Yeah.
Or with them.
Oh, definitely. Yep.
Yep.
I like that. Well, do we think we have time for one more question? We're running a bit like. Otherwise, what we can do is, we'll make sure to get back to your questions after the webinar. We don't want to leave anyone with any questions unanswered, but I really, really appreciate everyone tuning in today. Thank you for our incredible panelists for sharing, your expertise and leadership. I think what stood out for me today is that the new Quality Playbook is about collaboration, influence, but leadership as well. So if there's just one thing or one message to leave with today is that quality is no longer a checkpoint, it's a strategic function. And the new playbook is being written right now by everyone in QA, by these 3 women that I have with me today in this webinar. So yes, thank you all for joining us today. And thank you to the panelists one more time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye-bye, everyone.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.